You're ready, Ms. Spears.
Councilmember Morrell present, Councilmember Moreno present, Councilmember Giarrusso present. We have a quorum. Councilmember Harris is also present.
Thank you. First up today, we have a resolution regarding the gas distribution infrastructure sale. This resolution is simply establishing a procedural schedule to evaluate the joint application of Delta States Utilities and Energy New Orleans, requesting authorization for Delta State to operate as a natural gas distribution company. We have representatives from Delta State here to present today. Just so everyone knows, procedurally, this resolution opens a docket and establishes a procedural schedule to evaluate the application for those topics. So, Delta State representatives, do you have a proposal to present today? This is the nice table up front here where you guys get to sit. You should probably get used to it. This is where you'll sit whenever you come before you tell.
Is that guys? And that's it. All right. All right. Good afternoon. Thank you guys so much for having us here. We're really excited to get a chance to give a brief introduction of our company and why we're so excited about the opportunity here in New Orleans with Delta States Utilities. So, just a little bit about myself and our company. My name is Julius Bedford. I'm a managing director at Bernhard Capital Partners. We are a Louisiana-based middle market private equity firm that focuses on building companies that provide services to essential services to critical pieces of infrastructure. And we do so from a very operational standpoint. I say that because our real heritage is in our principals and their former lives as principals, founder of the Shaw Group, a large industrial services company that was built up to over $6 billion global revenues before it sold to Chicago Bridge and Iron in 2013. That DNA, that more than 35 years of operating history has really informed our decisions in how we invest in companies and how we build companies, and most importantly, how those companies do work that benefits our communities that we work in and create positive, lasting impacts. So we've been very proud of the track record we've had in building communities in Louisiana specifically, even more so specifically in Baton Rouge, where my home office is based. And about a year and a half ago, we made a commitment to invest more, expand our investments in New Orleans as well. That's evidenced, as we'll kind of talk a little bit later in this deck, by us having celebrated earlier last year a new headquarters for one of our portfolio companies, United Utilities. That's an opportunity for us to not only move closer to some of our clientele, but to also provide an opportunity to expand our commitment to Louisiana jobs, bringing in about 141 high-paying jobs to New Orleans, on top of the more than 6,000 employees that we have here in Louisiana. So just to speak to what's on the page here, we've got 19 platform companies. We developed those in part by making 67 acquisitions. And we have 19,000 employees across our entire portfolio, direct employees. So we see ourselves as job creators, operators, and community members, and that's where we like to see and visualize our impact. So on the slide here is just a representation of some of our Louisiana-based portfolio companies. I'll touch on just a couple of these before diving in a little more specifically in United Utility on the next slide. Towards the upper right, Epic. This was a greenfield investment for us. It quite literally started with about a dozen people and a plot of land in Livingston Parish. And we've grown in that short amount of time, Epic, to being the #1 in market share for specialized manufacturing fabrication of piping in the U.S. And we've done so by, again, investing in the communities in which we've located. That's evidenced in our investments in Louisiana in particular, both in the Livingston Parish facility, but also in the Lake Providence facility that we were really proud to bring jobs to both those communities in Louisiana through EPIC. I'll also mention here in the bottom left-hand corner, National Water Infrastructure. This is our Ascension Parish-based regulated wastewater utility. NWI's been in the business in Ascension Parish performing these services for nearly 30 years now. And just this past summer, we received a unanimous approval from the Louisiana Public Service Commission to go out and execute on a project to modernize and centralize and consolidate wastewater treatment infrastructure in the parish. And in doing so, removing roughly 3.5 million gallons per day of effluent out of local and parish waterways and making those waterways more accessible for recreational use, creating those environmental benefits, and lastly, providing an enhancement to the backbone in Ascension Parish for further economic development. So we're really proud of the work we've done in both those and in all of the Louisiana-based portfolio companies that are represented on this page here. Specific with United Utility, as I mentioned, we just moved the headquarters of United Utility to just an address down the street here at Voyagers earlier last year. United Utility, this company that's been around for about 7 years. In that short amount of time, we've built it up to be the 5th largest service provider for regulated utilities in the transmission and distribution space in the U.S. So again, that was us taking a look at how can we provide the essential services that are going to go into the critical infrastructure that supports our communities. And we're happy to do so here based in Louisiana, where we feel like the state has a very strong track record of being a leader in energy and innovation. So we're really happy to serve through United Utility, regulate utilities across the nation, but we're especially proud to be able to do so from here in New Orleans. So that's all we were going to give just as a brief introduction to Bernhardt Capital Partners. I'd like to turn things over to my colleague Ryan King here to talk more in detail about the Delta States Utilities opportunity.
Good afternoon. I'm Ryan King on behalf of Delta States Utilities. I work with Julius, and on this transaction, I'm specifically more involved in the regulatory aspects. To start off, we appreciate you allowing us to be here today to give kind of a brief background of our company, as well as a few details about the proposed transaction, and we'll talk through a brief timeline of what we think this looks like moving forward. So initially, just an overall summary of the transaction that's part of this proposal that's before you. Delta States Utilities is proposing and has entered an agreement with Energy New Orleans to purchase their New Orleans gas system. That portion is jurisdictional to the New Orleans Council, and it represents service to approximately 110,000 customers in New Orleans. In a parallel transaction, we're also proposing to purchase the Baton Rouge system from Energy, which is subject to the jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission. So the matter before you today is that New Orleans piece. It's the 110,000 customers in this service area. We'll start with a few of the benefits of the transaction. We are a brand new public utility company, and we want to locate our headquarters in New Orleans for the entire Delta States Utilities enterprise. And we're also going to add about 100 jobs to take over the shared services portion that will be retained by Energy. In addition to those 100 jobs, because we're a startup, we need each of the Energy employees working in gas distribution today to come on board for Delta States Utilities. And so we've committed to offering employment to each and every one of those 200 Energy employees that are currently operating these systems. And that 100 jobs is what we need to take over the shared services. Most of those hires will be prior to closing, and we say 100 jobs, but we, as Julius showed earlier, we intend and are committed to continue to investing in this utility company and our growth of this company, and we expect that 100 jobs to grow into the future. One differentiator with Delta States Utilities is the ability to be core focused, meaning we will not have any competition with other utilities or other business lines. Delta States Utilities will be operating as a solely focused gas distribution company. And so that's from the top to bottom. That's from our executives, our management, our operators, the technology infrastructure we develop, the resources, even the customer interfaces will be solely focused to benefit the gas customers and continue to provide reliable service to those customers. Additionally, during this transition period, and that's the period from when the agreement was signed to when we expect to close, that transition period, we will be standing up and implementing a technology platform and ecosystem that will be modernized and it will be brand new. And so you can think of this as our administrative programming, our back office, our our operation programs, and even the customer billing, customer call centers, and customer databases. All of that is going to be core focused and created from scratch to better serve these gas customers. And we're really excited about that opportunity. As a primary tenet for both Energy and Delta States of this transaction is day one readiness. And we've talked about a couple of items that will help us ensure that. Number one, bringing over those 200 employees. Those folks know how to operate these systems today, and they'll know how to operate these systems after closing. Another is the technology upgrades. We've developed a project management office with Energy where we're collaboratively working together to identify potential issues and make sure we have solutions planned out and in place now rather than as we approach closing. So day one readiness is our ability to seamlessly transition service on the day of closing from Energy New Orleans to Delta States Utilities, and it's a commitment of both parties that has so far has been worked. We've worked very well together on that. Delta States Utilities, as part of this proposal, is not requesting any changes to the rate schedules or riders currently in place. We're simply requesting to step into the shoes of Energy and continue under their existing rate schedules and riders. And part of that commitment is to also continue the commitment under the GURP and IM improvement plans so that we're sure we maintain the integrity of these systems moving forward. Next, I'll touch on a proposed timeline of how we see this process moving forward. As noted, the agreement was signed on October 28th, and then on December 11th, we filed both applications, one with the Public Service Commission and one with the New Orleans Council. This dark green bar represents what we see as the regulatory process, and we're hopeful to achieve a regulatory approval by the end of 2024, and that's kind of where that dark green bar ends. And then after that approval process, we get into a 6-month period where we're really focused on kind of dotting the I's, crossing the T's on our technology upgrades. We're doing final testing, and we're starting to onboard folks to ensure that day one readiness. So from an operational perspective, the initial phase was putting together our transition team and starting to work through resources to help with this technology investment. Since that time, we've worked towards onboarding leadership and really planning out our leadership team and how that looks moving forward. And then in the interim, this regulatory period, we're really onboarding key resources. These are the folks that are subject matter experts in the various pieces of this utility business. We really start to onboard those shared services folks. A lot of this is that 100 new employees towards the end of that regulatory approval process. And these shared services folks we can hire at that time because they won't currently be employed by Energy. So we have about 6 months that we can onboard them and get them up to date with the new upgrades, the new systems. And then finally, in that last 6-month process, towards the latter part, we start the employee onboarding activities with the current Energy employees. And this gives us a couple of months to train them. They're still going to be working with Energy during this process, but it's a couple of months to train them on the new systems and new technology. And again, this is to ensure we can achieve that day one readiness standard. So this is we briefly touched on a few of these, but the current activities, we're finalizing budgets and scope for the technology systems and IT systems. We're working with Energy on our project management office, and we're issue spotting and developing solutions to achieve that day one readiness standard. We're completing onboarding of key resources and developing our plan for our strategic company executive leadership. And we're working through the regulatory processes with both the Public Service Commission and the New Orleans Council. And we're continuing, lastly and probably very importantly, continuing to work with Energy to update the employees that are there today to make sure that they are updated as how this transaction is moving along and the expectations. That really is the end of the presentation. I think we are excited that this opportunity to continue to invest in New Orleans businesses and the New Orleans and be a new New Orleans business, a plan to be growing New Orleans business. We're excited to work with the council, Kiro staff, and the advisors to come up with a solution that can benefit both the gas customers, the citizens of New Orleans, and the citizens of Louisiana. So we really appreciate your time, and we really look forward to working with you all into the future.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomas.
First of all, thank you for your presentation, and congratulations to your business and your partners for wanting to venture into an area where we see very few local and diverse companies involved. You mentioned the word grow a few times. Grow how? And is it growth just in gas, or is it growth in other areas of resiliency?
Yeah, as Ryan noted, Delta States Utility is a committed gas utility company. Mm-hmm. And when we speak of growth, we speak of growing opportunities in that sector specifically. As Ryan mentioned, and what we're going to be building up, it's going to be built up to have the minimum viable product that's needed today, right? So that we're mindful of not adding costs where costs don't need to be added, but it's going to have the backbone to be able to handle and have the capacity for future growth, future additions, continued investment in the infrastructure here.
Solely in gas?
Solely in gas, yes.
Okay, yeah, I asked that question because when I leave here in a few minutes, I've talked to 3 universities, Xavier, Dillard, and Southern. They're doing a joint thing today, and I want to talk to them about growth and opportunities. What about diversity, right? Especially in the field of utilities. There are very few African Americans, women, and other minority groups involved. If you're going to establish yourself in that market, what does the company look like? How do you grow in those areas? Or what are y'all intentions? Or are you already planning that level of diversity already?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We understand representation is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. We are still developing the specific plans for Delta States Utilities and what those policies are going to look like. But I think it's been a positive shift generally in the utility industry where these programs are being implemented, they're being demanded, as part of how you better serve your community and maybe making sure you're creating spaces to have leaders in your organization that represent the communities around it. So that's a commitment, something we talk about all the time across all our portfolio companies. We're building out those policies now for DSU. And
so my last point is growth, diversity, and now locally. When you look at the disparities, economic and socially here, many of our ethnic groups, including African Americans, the gap has widened post-Katrina. And we see you guys in an emergency industry where hopefully you make money. What about local participation? I just left a tour with the Vietnamese scientist who actually grew up in New Orleans East and is from New Orleans. And we were fortunate enough to be able to capture and keep him here. Are y'all looking at our local talent as you grow and as you provide opportunity and as you diversify?
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the commitment. This is pretty personal for me. I know my first internship out of school was with a different large integrated utility system, and there just happened to be a brother there who my family knew, who created an opportunity for me to intern there. And at the end of the internship, it went really well. It really kind of changed the trajectory of where I wanted to continue to study in college. And what he said that stuck to me was, hey, I've been trying to create programs like this, but they keep telling me there aren't candidates available. And I know that's not true. And so what I think we've seen and we would love to implement with DSU as well is not just a commitment to hire locally, but to train locally, to educate locally, so that that's not a convenient excuse that the pool isn't there. I think there are good precedents for utilities that we've served at United Utility where they've made that effective, and we'll look to follow those as we build out these policies.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, some people are telling New Orleans and Louisiana kids, don't put that on your resume. Make them think you're from somewhere else. You might have a better chance. So good luck to you guys. I think it's an opportunity to participate in growing an industry that's dominated by, the same old companies, and I look forward to seeing what happens. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Druso.
I also apologize because I got to step out at 1:30, so I'm going to ask some quick questions. When I hear Bernhard Capital and then Delta State, I just want to make sure, and I've asked this to Mr. Foster, that Delta State is being set up as a fully integrated company to run these assets, and the plan isn't to try and squeeze as much of the assets as possible and then hand the liability back to somebody else in like 2 years.
Yeah, DSU is absolutely going to be a standalone entity. It's the model we follow across all of our portfolio companies. We set them up as individual platform investments.
Okay, and I guess another way of asking is the plan then of DSU to stay in the market and be a standalone company for as long as feasible?
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned also that other parishes have different, I guess, entities who are doing some of this. Do they also have two bills? I know that sounds like a simple issue, but given all the sewage and water board bills that we have to deal with, adding another one into the mix makes us a little nervous. So I just kind of wanted to see how that's been dealt with in other places, whether inside Louisiana or out.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Ron, do you want maybe talk about how we handle that with NWI?
Yeah, so there is precedent for multiple utilities being on the same bill, and a lot of times it's a sewer and a water company. If they're separate utility providers, a lot of times the sewer company will contract with the water company so that person receives one bill. And like you said, we understand a lot of these folks have received the same bill from Energy for 30, 40, 50 years. And having somebody send a new bill is going to take a lot of explanation. And frankly, we're concerned with they may think it's a fake bill. Who is Delta State's billing? Right. So we plan a strategic outreach effort within New Orleans to get ahead of that fact, but we're also willing to work with the council and the Curo staff for any creative ideas we can have to somehow better achieve that issue.
You sort of nailed exactly where I was headed. New Orleanians still sometimes call it NOPSI, right? So we're still dealing with that.
We thought about naming it NOPSI just so it wouldn't
and B, I think the idea of trying to integrate it into a single bill or platform makes a lot of sense. I realize that may present some strategic financial challenges, but if that could be integrated, I think it'd be great. And then if you could just spend a minute talking about, you hinted at it, but customer outreach, responsiveness, I think is always the last issue that customers are concerned about. And just how you all plan on tackling that, both in the explanation process and moving forward.
Yeah,
please.
No, so initially, and that's that last 6-month period, and I'm going to be a little bit more detailed initially, and
Right.
I'll step back a little bit. Initially, that last 6-month period is when we really plan to be out and about in the public in New Orleans, and that's to explain who we are, explain the process, explain the differences in the billing. Once we get to that closing date, we're going to continue that. We're going to continue to invest in different community projects and programs, but we're also going to be more, and this goes back to kind of that technology upgrade. These are factors, and we appreciate, and Councilwoman Moreno has given us similar notes, that the customer outreach, customer communication is one of the most important things that we really need to be considering. And so as we develop this infrastructure for our technology back end, a lot of those features we're integrating from the front end so that we don't have to go back and try to add them down the road. And we expect a lot better ability to communicate with customers and to maintain that constant contact as well as to update them on issues and problems that we see.
That sounds great. I know Councilmember Harris and others, Councilmember King sometimes host community meetings, and also we're happy to help as well if you're looking for how do we get the biggest bang on our buck for sort of neighborhood organizations, where does it make the most sense to try and touch the most amount of people. I think all the district council members will want to work with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have one public comment by Mr. Jesse George. We have online public comment? Okay. How many?
3.
Okay. Go, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse George, on behalf of the Alliance for Affordable Energy. We appreciate the council opening this docket and the chance to participate. The idea of Entergy focusing solely on electricity service is appealing as New Orleanians continue to struggle with reliability issues. But the idea of the creation of a new utility whose sole purpose is the sale of fossil gas and the continuing of the propping up of fossil gas infrastructure in the city is not so appealing. We would like to see, if this deal is approved, some sort of plan for a transition away from fossil gas reliance in this city, particularly in residential homes where it is terrible for air quality. We have high rates of childhood asthma in this city, high rates of cancer that are all linked to use of gas in the home. So this deal has to come with some sort of managed decapitalization of gas infrastructure in the city. When we hear we're going to have new investment in gas infrastructure, that is the opposite way we need to be going. These fossil fuels are contributing to the climate change that is sinking this city into the Gulf, and we cannot continue to rely on fossil fuels for use in our homes or frankly anywhere else. We also hear these lofty promises of 100 new jobs. We heard promises about jobs with the River District pilot proposal that came through. So if we're going to be making these promises, they need to be part of the deal. If we're promising 100 jobs, that needs to be a requirement of the approval of this deal. We look forward to continuing to participate in this docket, and we hope for the best outcome for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. More comments? Thank you.
The first comment is from Marion Penny Freistadt. To honorable council members in the Utility, Cable, Telecommunications, and Technology Committee, I'm writing in support of the Alliance for Affordable Energy's suggestions on Item 2, Resolution Gas Distribution Infrastructure Sale. While the Alliance and I support E&O focusing on providing a reliable electric service, we have concerns about the creation of a new company, DeltaStatesUtilities.com, whose sole purpose is to sell fossil gas. We believe that this deal must be accompanied by a plan of managed decapitalization. In other words, there must be a plan to ultimately phase out this infrastructure rather than a plan to continue propping it up. Also, in the executive session, sorry, Councilmember, that's for another agenda item. Sarah Bodenstein. While I support Entergy New Orleans focusing on providing reliable electric service, I have concerns about the creation of a new company whose sole purpose is to sell fossil fuels as gas. I believe that this deal must be accompanied by a plan of managed decapitalization. In other words, there must be a plan to ultimately phase out the infrastructure rather than a plan to continue propping it up. Fossil fuels are one of the main drivers of climate change, an impending disaster that will disproportionately affect Louisiana and its citizens. The last comment is from Jonathan Anthony Roberts. As a devoted resident of District E, my primary concern lies with the welfare of our community. With the DSU's proposed sale, I respectfully ask, how will this sale ensure the provision of reliable, affordable, and environmentally sustainable gas service for our district? It's crucial that our community's needs guide the decision, and I trust the committee will prioritize these aspects for the enduring benefit of District E. Those are all the comments.
Thank you. I see no further comments. I'll entertain I'll move to forward this resolution to the full council. Once again, for those of you watching in TV land, this is simply to open the procedural schedule to review the application.
Council member, to clarify, this is on the agenda for Thursday's
Thursday.
council meeting.
Yes, sorry. Thank you. I need one more vote. Where is? All right. Grab me a member. All right. Give us a moment.
Council member, we can take this up after executive session for
Okay.
a vote
It will-
if you'd like.
I'll withdraw my motion, and we'll take this up after executive session. All right, next up. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you being here today. Next up, we have motion M2411, the authorization to contract with AT&T Corporation. This adds the council president as a signatory to amendment number 3 to the contract between the City of New Orleans and AT&T Corp. in accordance with section 7010 of the Code of the City of New Orleans. This is a necessary motion as the value of the amendment exceeds $1 million.
We have representatives from ITI.
All right, come on down.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Kim LeGroux from ITI. I'm the IT director. The AT&T contract was executed in 2018. It was originally signed as a 3-year agreement with 3 one-year amendments. We have now crossed the $1 million threshold for this contract, so it comes before you for approval. The AT&T contract provides all voice and digital services to the city's agencies. Our infrastructure supports about 120 sites at this point. Many of those have traditional telephone lines in elevators, fax machines, and other types of voice services that we support and continue to provide. This contract extends, or this amendment extends that contract so those services can be provided.
Thank you very much. That's a very detailed explanation. Do we have any comments on this item?
We have one online comment from Jonathan Anthony Roberts. As a longtime AT&T customer, I am concerned by the lack of service availability in parts of District E. In light of this contract authorization, I must ask, how will AT&T ensure equitable digital infrastructure and internet service across our entire district? Our community deserves a commitment to expanded access and high-quality services as we consider this contract. It's vital that these service disparities are addressed and resolved for the benefit of all residents.
Thank you. We'll take this under consideration shortly. Appreciate you here for being here for providing insight on the contract. Thank you, Mr. Grimm.
Thank you.
We have a last-minute comment card. Would you like to speak to Ms. Ford real quickly? Yes. And as you know,
That's the number 3.
right, and this is just to extend their current contract with the city to provide digital phone services.
Okay, and I'm sorry, but I'm not really sure about that because I see a lot of things that happen with utility and cable that the community has no support in dealing with these companies once the council approves them to come here and access for the community to try to work out any issues or support or whatever, questions even, it's like null and void. It can't happen. So when they come before you, this is our only chance to be able to reach them. And the executive, they look so nice and beautiful coming in here today, but trying to reach them outside of here, trying to get cable access outside of here, it's not happening. And that's why I came down today, because I need help with these utilities, and I need help with these utility agencies in trying to communicate them. And it's not fair that we have to come to you guys to ask you to communicate to them when they need to be accessible to the community. We got 1 million people here in the city of New Orleans. It's just not good for them to be able to come here, get a date to come before the city council, and that's all we have. you know, and I'm not seeing that happening outside of here, and I want to. Okay?
Thank you,
And
Ms.
that's
Ford.
why.
Ms. Groves? Jasmine Groves? Okay. Thank you for your comments.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. That's okay. Here, I'll be here for the next utility meeting, and we'll see how it goes then. Because I'll be back every utility meeting. Trying to reach them after we leave out of here, it don't happen. What?
All right, I will move on the resolution first. Ms. Spears. All right, please vote your machines. 3 yeas, no nays. The resolution is adopted and forwarded to the full council. Next up, we have motion M2411. I will move. Seconded by Councilmember Moreno. 3 yeas, no nays. That'll be forwarded to the full council. And last, I move that we enter executive session to discuss ongoing
Councilmember,
litigation.
we have to continue Ms. Freidstad's comment regarding executive session.
Okay.
She just says, in the executive session around the ongoing litigation at FERC, around Grand Gulf Nuclear Station, we want to encourage the council to stand strong in holding out for every dollar Entergy owes us. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I will move that we go to executive session. Take a second. Second, Councilmember King, please vote your machines. 3 yeas, no nays. We are going to executive session. Thank you.